Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Katrina. I'm a fourth year social work student at the University of Ryerson. I'm currently completing my placement practicum with the organization For a Safer Space. And this is the second video on our book club for the book Sister Outsider, Essays and Speeches by Audre Lorde. So last week, the video that we uploaded, we talked about the introduction, notes from a trip to Asia, and poetry is not a luxury. So now we'll be moving on to the next three chapters. So we will be discussing the transformation of silence into language and action, scratching the surface, and the uses of the erotic. So let's begin with the first essay, the transformation of silence into language and action. So the main themes that I pulled out was language and power. As Lorde famously says, your silence will not protect you. This essay begins with Lorde detailing how she felt and the moments leading up to her surgery to when she found out there was a tumor in her chest. This made her think of all the moments in her life where she didn't speak up and stayed silent. This essay talks about the importance of reclaiming language. Referring back to that first quote, our silence will not protect us from mortality, which is a revelation Lorde has made. So one of the key quotes that I pulled from this essay goes as follows. I can't possibly teach Black women's writing. Their experience is so different from mine. Yet how many years have you spent teaching Plato and Shakespeare and Proust? So this is by Audre Lorde, and this is on page 48. The next chapter. So scratching the surface, some notes on barriers to women and loving. The main themes include racism, sexism, heterosexism, and intersectionality. On the beginning portion of this essay, Lorde does go through and define what each of these terms means to her. So this essay focuses in on the main themes of racism and sexism and how it pins Black folks against each other. Lorde mentions how Black women are finally speaking up for themselves, and that if Black men feel threatened by this, it is because they are also oppressing Black women. She goes in deeper to say that instead of focusing on real problems at hand, the Black community is wasting time fighting with each other. Black men and women fight over who has more of a right to freedom, instead of looking for solutions together, focusing on greater issues at hand. Lorde argues that by fighting each other, we are missing the greater issue of structural racism and sexism that is beyond just within the Black community itself. So another key quote I pulled from this essay goes as follows again. All too often, the message comes loud and clear to Black women from Black men. I am the only prize worth having, and there are not too many of me. And remember, I can always go elsewhere. So if you want me, you'd better stay in your place, which is away from one another, or I will call you lesbian and wipe you out. So again, this goes back to the idea of pinning Black men against Black women, that in the quote, it talks about how Black men deem themselves as the only prize worth having. And so instead of fighting each other and wasting that time, Lorde argues that we should be looking at why it is that we are pinned against each other. What are the structural issues with racism, sexism, heterosexism that are out there that leads us to fight with each other instead of focusing on solutions together? And the final chapter that we'll be discussing today is the uses of the erotic as power. So the main themes of this essay I pulled was feminism and power. In this essay, Lorde identifies eroticism as an internal force that stems from deep, unexpressed feelings. She argues that the erotic holds a great deal of power. However, those in positions of power recognize this, yet they fear it. Those individuals being Western, typically white men. It is because of these fears that men place the expectations that women put theirs on full display through sexual situations. Men are afraid of their own eroticism, yet they want to use women's feelings. Lorde also talks about how Western men look down on women's eroticism, therefore ensuring that they don't have to use their own erotic power by making it or deeming it to be unserious. The eroticism is often associated with pornography, but it goes well beyond it. It is about sensory and a woman's creative power that Lord argues. So the final key quote that I pulled was that the erotic has often been misnamed by men and used against women, which goes back to Lord's original argument about how men don't want to put theirs on display, but will display women's. Men don't want to tap into their own erotic power, but they want women to do so. But then they deem it as unserious. So it just talks more about the misnaming of what the eroticism really means, and they use it against women. So there you have it. This is our second book club. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next week for for the next 3 chapters. Bye, everyone.